The final countdown began with 6 hours remaining. Every human ship in the Valara system powered down to minimum life support. Lights dimmed throughout the fleet. Environmental systems reduced to bare essentials. Every watt of available power was routed to the containment grid. From Earth, Mars, and every human colony within range, power satellites rotated to begin beaming energy through hyperspace relays toward Valara. Commander Hajun Park walked through the Resilience one last time. The corridors were dim and cold. Crew members sat at their stations wearing thermal jackets. The life support system was running at 20% capacity. It was uncomfortable, but no one complained. Everyone understood that their discomfort might save 40 billion lives. He stopped by the engineering section. Engineer Minho Song was making final adjustments to the power distribution network. His hands moved confidently across the controls, even though his face showed the exhaustion of 3 days without real sleep. Status? Hajun asked quietly. We're ready, Minho replied. Every system is pushed to the limit, but they'll hold. Probably. Minho shrugged. I'd be lying if I said definitely. We're doing things that these systems were never designed to do, but we've reinforced everything we could. The rest is up to luck and timing. Hajun nodded. That was honest at least. Good work, engineer. Get some rest before the attempt. Rest? Minho laughed. I'm way too nervous to rest. I'll sleep after we either save the galaxy or blow ourselves up trying. Science Officer Yuna Choi ran her final simulations. The models had been refined continuously over the past 3 days. Every piece of new data fed into the calculations. Every adjustment improved their chances by fractions of a percent. The current simulation showed a 23% chance of success, not good odds. But better than zero, better than the nothing they started with. She checked the synchronization between all human facilities. The timing had to be perfect. Earth would begin its energy transmission at exactly the right microsecond. Mars would follow 0.003 seconds later. The Jupiter stations would come online 0.005 seconds after that. The sequence would cascade through every human power source, building to a crescendo that would channel more energy than a small star. For 17 seconds. That was all the time they had. Any longer and systems would fail catastrophically. Power conduits would melt, generators would explode, ships would lose containment and vent their atmospheres. 17 seconds was the absolute maximum the human equipment could sustain. It had to be enough. Pilot Soman Han sat in her cockpit, monitoring the drone network. The 10,000 drones floated in perfect formation around the quantum rift. Each one had to maintain its exact position during the energy discharge. The slightest drift would create gaps in the containment field. Gaps meant failure. Her squadron was spread throughout the grid, each pilot responsible for a section of drones. If any drone failed or drifted out of position, the pilots would manually adjust nearby drones to compensate. It would require split-second decisions and perfect coordination. All pilots sound off, Soman called over the squadron channel. One by one, her pilots reported ready. 20 voices, each one calm and professional despite the pressure. Soman felt proud of her team. They were good people, good pilots, ready to do their part. Remember, she said, watch your sensors, not the rift. The rift is going to do some crazy things during the discharge. Don't get distracted. Focus on your drones. Keep them in position. Everything else is someone else's problem. Easy for you to say, one pilot joked. You're not the one flying next to a rip in space-time. True. That's why I gave myself the easy section far from the rift. Rank has privileges, the squadron laughed. Humor helped with nerves. Soman knew her people needed that right now. Captain Ji-won Kim stood alone on the bridge of her command ship. The rest of the bridge crew was at their stations, but she had a moment of solitude to think. In 90 minutes, she would give the order that would either save 17 worlds or confirm that humanity had attempted something truly impossible. She thought about the 40 billion people on those worlds. Most of them had no idea what was happening. They had been told evacuation was underway, but information was limited. They were living their lives hoping that someone would save them, not knowing that their fate rested with a species barely 2 centuries into space exploration. What if they failed? What if all this effort, all this determination, all this human stubbornness amounted to nothing? Could she live with that failure? Then she shook her head. Failure wasn't the important question. The important question was whether she could live with not trying. And the answer to that was simple. No. She couldn't accept not trying. None of the humans could. That was what made them human. They tried impossible things because someone had to try. They fought against overwhelming odds because giving up was worse than failing. They bet everything on crazy ideas because safe choices never changed the universe. G1 activated communications with the entire fleet. All ships, this is Captain Kim. Final status check. Report readiness. One by one, the responses came in. Every ship reported ready. Every system was online. Every crew member was at their station. The human fleet was prepared to attempt the impossible. Acknowledged, G1 said. Stand by for final countdown. This is it, everyone. Everything we've worked for comes down to the next hour. Whatever happens, I want you all to know that I'm proud to serve with every single one of you. Now let's go save some lives. Communications Officer Haiwan Lee began the countdown at exactly the calculated moment. Her voice was steady and calm, as if she was announcing a routine shuttle launch rather than the most ambitious attempt to manipulate space-time in galactic history. T-minus 60 minutes to energy discharge. All systems nominal. The alien observation posts recorded everything with their sensors. The Velkari science vessel had been joined by dozens of other ships from across the galaxy. Word had spread. Everyone wanted to witness what would happen when the humans attempted their impossible plan. Most expected failure. The mathematics were clear. The physics were absolute. But there was something compelling about watching someone try anyway. T-minus 30 minutes. Power systems charging to full capacity. Throughout the human fleet, generators spun up to maximum output. The three massive rings began to glow as electromagnetic coils energized. The space around them shimmered as the building power started to affect local spacetime. The quantum rift seemed to pulse in response as if sensing the threat. T-minus 15 minutes. Drone network at full operational status. Soman Han watched her displays intently. All drones showed green. All positions maintained. Her pilots reported ready. Everything was perfect. Now they just had to keep it perfect for 17 seconds while reality bent around them. T-minus 10 minutes. All stations report final readiness. Engineer Minho Song stared at his displays, hands hovering over manual override controls. If anything started to fail during the discharge, he would have microseconds to compensate. His job was to keep the power flowing no matter what broke. He had already decided that if it came down to a choice between ship safety and mission success, the mission won. You could replace a ship. You couldn't replace 40 billion lives. T-minus 5 minutes. External power sources confirmed transmission readiness. Across human space, technicians at Earth, Mars, Jupiter, and a dozen other facilities prepared to route every available watt of power toward Valara. They would transmit through hyperspace, focusing beams of energy across light years with precision that required perfect timing. One facility transmitting early or late could disrupt the entire sequence. T-minus 2 minutes. All systems green. Standing by for final authorization. Ji-won took a deep breath. This was it. The moment that would define her career, her species' reputation, and possibly the future of 40 billion lives. She pressed the communication button. This is Captain Ji-won Kim. Authorization code Omega-7 Alpha. Commence operation. Authorization confirmed, Hee-won replied. Final countdown beginning. T-minus 60 seconds. Science Officer Yuna Choi's hands moved across her controls, making tiny adjustments to the simulation parameters. The real-time data was feeding in now. The rift's exact energy signature. The precise positions of all system components. Every variable updating continuously. The simulation recalculated their chances of success. 24%. Better than she had hoped. Worse than she wanted. She looked at the numbers one last time, then closed the simulation window. The time for calculations was over. Now came the time for action. T-minus 30 seconds. Hajun felt the ship vibrate as the power systems reached maximum output. Every piece of equipment was straining. Every connection was carrying more current than it was rated for. The resilience was giving everything it had. T-minus 15 seconds. The three electromagnetic rings blazed with power. The space around them twisted visibly as they began generating fields strong enough to move planets. The quantum rift pulsed faster, energy readings spiking across every sensor. T-minus 10 seconds. Soman watched a drone start to drift. One of her pilots reacted instantly, adjusting three nearby drones to compensate. The gap closed. The network held. The 3 human warships arrived at Carvus Prime with 6 hours to spare. The Council had positioned observation satellites to record everything. Every species in the galaxy watched their screens with a mixture of hope and fear. Admiral Sunho stood on the bridge of the Indomitable. His crew moved around him with practiced efficiency. They had trained in simulation for centuries, but this would be their first real battle. He could feel the tension in the air. Enemy fleet detected, reported the sensor officer. 73 vessels. Same configuration as historical records. Sunho studied the tactical display. The Devourer ships were massive and organic-looking, like predators grown in the darkness of space. They moved in patterns he recognized from ancient battles. Nothing had changed about them. They were perfect killing machines, unchanged by time. Captain Taeyang, Sunho said into his communications link. Are your Marines ready? On the second ship, the Relentless, Captain Taeyang checked his armor seals one final time. Around him, 200 Marines prepared their weapons and equipment. Ready, sir. Just give the word. The third ship, the Defiant, moved into position. Its commander, a woman named Hyejin, reported her status. Weapons armed. Defense screens active. All systems nominal. The Council observers couldn't believe what they were seeing. The 3 human ships were tiny compared to the Devourer fleet. Each enemy vessel was 10 times larger than the human warships. The numbers seemed impossible. On the Council station, Jiwoo stood before the main tactical display. She had been given access to coordinate the defense. Hyunsik and Dayun stood nearby, watching with worried expressions. This is insane, Thrain muttered. He had positioned his own ships as far back as possible, ready to cover the evacuation. 3 ships against 73. They're going to be destroyed in minutes. Jiwoo didn't respond. She was too focused on the battle developing before her. The Devourer fleet entered weapons range. They opened fire with massive energy beams that could cut through a planet's crust. The space around Carvus Prime lit up with deadly light, and the human ships danced. They moved in ways that seemed to break physics. Tight turns at impossible speeds, sudden accelerations that should have crushed their crews. They wove between the energy beams like leaves in a storm, never staying in one place long enough to be targeted. How are they doing that? Frex demanded. Those maneuvers should kill them. Dayun, who had been studying the human ships, answered. Inertial dampening systems. Very advanced. And their pilots are using techniques that would take decades to master. They've had centuries to practice. The Indomitable fired its first weapon. It wasn't an energy beam like the Council ships used. It was something simple and ancient. A solid metal rod, accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed. The relativistic projectile hit a Devourer ship dead center. The kinetic energy released was equivalent to a nuclear weapon. The alien vessel shattered, fragments spinning away in all directions. 1 down, Sunho said calmly. 72 to go. The Defiant launched a spread of missiles. They weren't like normal missiles. As they closed with their targets, nuclear explosions pumped X-ray lasers into focused beams. 6 Devourer ships took critical damage in seconds. The Council observers watched in stunned silence. The humans weren't just fighting. They were winning. But the Devourers adapted quickly. They changed formation, using their larger ships as shields. They focused their fire on the Relentless, trying to overwhelm its defenses with sheer volume. Shields at 40%, reported the Relentless's tactical officer. Taeyang made his decision. Prepare for boarding action. Target that command vessel. Sir, that's suicide, his second-in-command protested. Maybe, Taeyang said, but it's also the only way to win. The Admiral taught us that sometimes you have to get close and do the dirty work yourself. The Relentless accelerated directly toward the largest Devourer ship. Enemy fire hammered its shields. Warning alarms screamed. But Taeyang never wavered. At the last moment, the Relentless rolled and fired emergency thrusters. It slammed into the Devourer vessel's hull, magnetic clamps engaging. Cutting torches activated, burning through the alien ship's armor. Inside the Relentless, Marines led by Lieutenant Jamin rushed to the breach. They wore heavy armor and carried weapons designed for close combat. Behind them came Medic Bora and her team, ready to save anyone who fell. The breach opened. Marines poured through into the hostile environment of the Devourer ship. The interior was dark and hot, lit by bioluminescent growths on the walls. The air was toxic. Gravity felt wrong, but the Marines advanced with their weapons ready. They encountered their first devourers in a wide corridor. The aliens were massive, covered in chitinous plates with multiple limbs ending in sharp points. They were built for killing. The first devourer lunged. Jamin's squad opened fire. Armor-piercing rounds tore into the creature, but it kept coming. It took concentrated fire from 5 Marines to bring it down. "They're tough," Jamin reported over the comm. "Advance with caution. Stay in teams." The Marines pushed deeper into the ship. They used tactics developed over thousands of years of human warfare. Cover and movement. Overlapping fields of fire. Never advance alone. When one Marine was wounded, 2 others dragged him back while the rest maintained suppression fire. Bora worked frantically to save the wounded. The Devourer's claws carried venom. She treated each injury with swift efficiency, her hands steady despite the chaos around her. On the bridge of the Devourer command ship, Jamin and his team planted explosive charges. They worked quickly, knowing they had limited time. Behind them, more Devourers were coming, drawn by the sounds of battle. "Charges set," Jamin reported. 30 seconds to extraction, the Marines ran. They fought their way back through corridors now filled with angry Devourers. 2 Marines fell. Bora and another medic grabbed them and dragged them along, refusing to leave anyone behind. They reached the breach with seconds to spare. The last Marine tumbled through just as the Relentless disengaged from the enemy hull. The explosives detonated. The Devourer command ship's bridge vanished in a ball of fire. Without coordination, the enemy fleet began to falter. Sun Ho saw his opportunity. All ships concentrate fire on their command vessels. Cut off their ability to coordinate. The 3 human ships pressed their attack. They were damaged now, their shields failing, their hulls scarred. But they fought with a ferocity that shocked the watching galaxy. One by one, the Devourer command ships fell. Without leadership, the remaining vessels began to withdraw. They had expected easy prey. Instead, they had found something they hadn't encountered in 10,000 years. They had found humanity awake and angry. The last Devourer ship jumped to faster-than-light speed, fleeing the system. The battle was over. On Carvis Prime below, 3 billion Vrel citizens celebrated. They had been saved by 3 ships and a few hundred humans who refused to let innocents die. On the council station, Vrex sat down heavily. His hands shook. He had just witnessed warfare at a level he never imagined possible. The humans had won, but the cost had been brutal. Several Marines were dead. All 3 ships were damaged. Hyunsik watched the tactical display go dark. He felt sick. This was what humanity had tried to leave behind. This was the violence they had exiled themselves to escape. But Jiwoo stood straight, her expression unreadable. She knew something the others didn't. Sun Ho had sent her a private message during the battle. The message was short and terrifying. This wasn't their main fleet. This was a scouting force. The real attack is coming. The galaxy had just seen what humanity could do, but the test was only beginning. And somewhere in the darkness beyond known space, the true Devourer Armada was waking up, hungry and ancient and unstoppable, unless humanity could remember how to be what they once were. Not warriors who loved war, but warriors who would do anything to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. The price of peace, they would learn, was eternal vigilance. And humanity had been paying that price for 10,000 years. The grand hall of the Galactic Council was silent as Hyunsik walked through its massive doors. His footsteps echoed against the crystalline floors, each step measured and calm. Behind him, 2 others followed. Jiwoo carried herself with military precision, her eyes constantly scanning the enormous chamber. Dayan clutched a datapad to her chest, her fingers trembling slightly with nervousness. The council members sat in a wide circle around the central platform. Their forms varied wildly. Some were covered in scales that shimmered under the lights. Others had wings folded against their backs. A few seemed to be made of living crystal that pulsed with inner light. One delegate floated in a tank of water, watching with large, unblinking eyes. Hyunsik stepped onto the platform and bowed respectfully. The gesture was simple but carried weight. Jiwoo and Dayun stood behind him, straight and professional. A massive reptilian creature leaned forward from the highest seat. His name was Vrex, leader of the Draxian people and current head of the Galactic Council. His voice rumbled like distant thunder when he spoke. "You claim to represent humanity," Vrex said. His golden eyes narrowed with suspicion. "That is impossible. Humanity is extinct. They have been dead for 10,000 years. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Several council members shifted in their seats. Some looked curious. Others looked angry. One crystalline being pulsed with what might have been fear. Hyun-sik remained calm. He had expected this reaction. "We are very much alive," he said. His voice carried clearly through the hall. "We have returned to the galaxy after a long absence. We wish to join the council and live in peace among the other species." A thin, insectoid creature stood up. Her name was Thriss, representative of the Vrel hive worlds. Her mandibles clicked together rapidly. "This is either a terrible joke or a dangerous lie," she said. "Everyone knows the story of humanity. They fought the Devourers long ago. Both species destroyed each other. Nothing survived that war." Dayun stepped forward slightly. Hyun-sik glanced at her and nodded. She took a deep breath and addressed the council. "The records are incomplete," Dayun said. Her voice was softer than Hyun-sik's but carried determination. "We have studied the ancient databases. Much information was lost in the chaos after the Devourer War. What remains are fragments and stories that have been retold so many times they became myths." "Myths that you now claim are false?" asked a melodic voice. The speaker was Lyran, one of the Skyborn. She was covered in brilliant blue feathers and her eyes were sharp. "We have built our entire understanding of galactic history on these events. The fall of humanity serves as a warning to all young civilizations. War destroys everyone. No one wins. That lesson is true," Hyun-sik said. But the conclusion was wrong. Humanity did not die in that war. We survived, and then we chose to leave. The chamber exploded with noise. Council members shouted questions. Some stood from their seats. Others activated translation devices, certain they had misheard. Frex raised one massive claw and the room fell silent again. "Explain," Frex commanded. Hyun-sik knew this moment would come. He had rehearsed these words 1,000 times during the long journey to council space. "After the war with the Devourers, humanity looked at what we had become. We were efficient killers. We had turned warfare into a science. We created weapons that could crack planets. We developed tactics that made us nearly unbeatable, and we realized something terrible. We had become monsters." He paused, letting his words sink in. "So humanity made a choice. We gathered our ships and left known space. We went into the dark, far beyond any charted systems. We did this to protect the galaxy from ourselves. We did not want our culture of war to spread to peaceful species." "And now you return?" Thriss asked. Her voice dripped with suspicion. "After 10,000 years of hiding, you suddenly appear and want to join the council? Why now?" Jiwoo answered this time. Her voice was crisp and military. "Our colony ship has been wandering for generations. We are descendants of those who chose exile. We were taught about the old days, but we have lived our entire lives in isolation. We wish to reconnect with galactic civilization. We want to be part of the community again." Frex studied them carefully. His tail swished behind him, a sign of deep thought among Draxians. "You carry no weapons," he observed. "Your ship is old and slow. You have no fleet behind you. If you truly are descendants of the legendary human warriors, you seem remarkably harmless." "We are not warriors," Hyun-sik said firmly. "We are scientists, farmers, teachers, and engineers. We left the weapons behind. We want only peace." "Convenient," muttered one of the titled delegates from his water tank. The council debated for hours. Hyun-sik and his team stood patiently on the platform, answering every question. They provided genetic samples to prove their human ancestry. They shared historical records from their ship's database. They explained their journey through the empty regions of space. Finally, as the chamber's lights dimmed to signal the approaching rest period, Frex made his decision. "The council will allow you to remain," he said, "but you will be granted only observer status. You may watch our proceedings but not vote. You will receive no military protection. You will be housed in the outer ring of this station. If you prove your intentions are peaceful over time, we may reconsider." Hyun-sik bowed again. "We accept these terms. Thank you for allowing us to stay." As they left the chamber, Dayun whispered to Hyun-sik, "They don't believe us. They think we're pretenders or fools." "I know," Hyun-sik replied quietly, "but we expected this. Trust takes time." Jiwoo said nothing. She walked behind them, her military training making her aware of every wary glance from passing aliens. She knew something the council did not. Hidden in the datapad Dayun carried were encrypted coordinates. Their colony ship was not alone in the darkness. Other ships waited there. Old ships, warships, ships that had been maintained and ready for 10,000 years. But Jiwoo kept this knowledge to herself. Hyunsik had made the right choice. The galaxy did not need to know about humanity's teeth, not yet, perhaps not ever. They reached their assigned quarters in the outer ring. The rooms were small and Spartan. Through the viewport, they could see the vast expanse of space and the distant lights of council ships patrolling the sector. Hyunsik stood at the window for a long time after the others had gone to rest. He touched the glass gently and wondered if humanity had made the right choice in returning. The galaxy seemed so peaceful, so innocent. He prayed they could keep it that way, but deep in his heart, where old instinct still whispered, Hyunsik felt something stirring in the darkness between stars. Something ancient and hungry, something that would test whether humanity's long exile had truly changed them, or whether the warriors were simply sleeping. The 6 weeks passed faster than anyone wanted. Across council space, transformation was happening. Civilian ships had been fitted with weapons. Merchant crews trained in combat maneuvers. Scientists learned to operate military sensors. The peaceful galaxy was preparing for war. Jiwoo stood in front of a class of alien commanders. They came from a dozen different species, each with different strengths and weaknesses. She had learned to adapt her teaching to each one. Remember, she told them, warfare isn't about being stronger. It's about being smarter. Use cover. Coordinate with your allies. Never fight alone when you can fight together. She paused and made sure they understood. And most importantly, know why you're fighting. You're not fighting to kill. You're fighting to protect. Remember that when things get desperate. In the training fields, Jamin worked with ground forces. He showed Draxian soldiers how to use their natural strength in close combat. He taught Vrel warriors how their hive mind coordination gave them tactical advantages. He helped Skyborn fighters understand how their flight capabilities could change battlefield dynamics. You don't need to become human, he told them repeatedly. Use what makes you unique. That's your real strength. Bora's medical teams had grown. She had trained hundreds of alien medics in combat trauma care. But she also taught them something more important. Never give up on the wounded, she insisted. Every life saved is a victory. Every soldier who comes home is a reason to keep fighting. The enemy wants to kill. We choose to save. That's what separates us from them. On the council station, Hyunsik met with political leaders. The galaxy was united in purpose but strained by the rapid changes. Some species struggled with the concept of violence. Others adapted too quickly, worrying Hyunsik that they might embrace warfare too eagerly. This is temporary, he reminded them. When the war ends, you can return to peace. Don't lose sight of your values. Admiral Sunho coordinated the massive fleet that was assembling. 300 council ships had been converted or built. Combined with reinforcements from humanity's hidden fleet, they had nearly 400 vessels ready for battle. It wouldn't be enough. The Devourers still had numerical superiority and better weapons. But Sunho had something the enemy didn't expect. He had diversity, dozens of species, each bringing different capabilities working together. The Devourers arrived on schedule. Their massive fleet emerged from dark space at the edge of Council territory. Long-range sensors tracked them advancing toward the core worlds where most of the population lived. The combined fleet moved to intercept. Sunho positioned his forces carefully. Human ships formed the core, with their advanced weapons and experienced crews. Around them, Council vessels took positions based on their capabilities. Fast ships on the flanks, heavy ships in the center, support vessels in the rear. Dae-Yoon worked in the sensor station on the Council headquarters. She monitored the fleet movements and provided analysis. She had discovered more ancient records during the preparation time, records that detailed Devourer tactics and weaknesses. Every piece of information could save lives. The two fleets met in the emptiness between stars. The space around them lit up with weapons fire. Energy beams cut through the darkness. Missiles streaked toward their targets. The Devourers attacked with overwhelming force just as they always had. But this time their prey fought back. The combined fleet moved with coordination that surprised everyone. Human-trained commanders directed their forces with skill. Different species supported each other, covering weaknesses and amplifying strengths. The battle became a deadly dance of strategy and sacrifice. Taiyang commanded the Relentless in the thick of the fighting. His ship had been repaired after Carvus Prime but still bore its scars. Now it earned new ones. Enemy fire hammered his shields. Damage reports came in constantly, but he kept fighting, kept inspiring his crew. All ships focus fire on that carrier, he ordered. Hit it together, now! A dozen vessels concentrated their weapons on a single Devourer ship. The combined firepower overwhelmed its defenses. The enemy carrier exploded, taking 20 Devourer fighters with it, but the cost was high. Council ships were dying. Good crews who had trained for only 6 weeks were facing an enemy that had perfected warfare over millions of years. The brave paid for their courage with their lives. On the indomitable, Sun Ho watched the battle unfold. He could see the patterns. The Devourers were powerful but predictable. They relied on strength and numbers. They didn't adapt. That was their weakness. Signal all commanders, Sun Ho ordered. Execute Plan Delta 7. The combined fleet began a complex maneuver. It split into smaller groups, each targeting different sections of the Devourer formation. The enemy tried to respond but couldn't coordinate fast enough. Their strength became a liability as their own ships got in each other's way. Jae-min led a boarding party onto another Devourer command ship. This time he had allies. Draxian soldiers fought beside him, using their claws and strength in close combat. Vrel warriors coordinated perfectly through their mental links. Skyborne fighters used their flight to attack from unexpected angles. Together they were devastating. The Devourers had never faced such a mixed force. They couldn't adapt to the varied tactics. Bo-Ra worked frantically in the medical bay. Wounded came in from multiple species. She treated them all with equal care. Human Marines beside Draxian soldiers beside Vrel warriors. In the medical bay there were no differences. Only patients who needed help and doctors who gave it. The battle raged for 14 hours. Ships on both sides died. Brave beings gave their lives. Heroes emerged from every species. Some would be remembered. Many would be forgotten. All mattered. Slowly, impossibly, the combined fleet began to win. Devourer ships started retreating. Their command structure broke down. Their coordination failed. They had never encountered resistance like this before. Sun Ho saw his chance. All ships, final push. Drive them back. The combined fleet surged forward. They pressed their advantage without mercy. The Devourers, for the first time in their long existence, felt fear. These prey species had teeth. These peaceful civilizations could fight. The enemy fleet broke. Ships fled in all directions, jumping to faster than light speed in panic. The battle was over, but Sun Ho knew it wasn't finished. Pursue them, he ordered. Find where they're running to. We need to make sure they can't regroup. What the pursuit discovered shocked everyone. The Devourers were fleeing to their homeworld, a dark planet in deep space, and on that planet, sensor readings showed millions more Devourers in hibernation, waiting, growing, ready to wake and consume the galaxy. Tae Yang made the hardest decision of his life. We have to destroy that world, he said over the command channel. It's the only way to end this threat forever. Hyun-sik, listening from the council station, felt sick. That's genocide, wiping out an entire species. It's survival, Sun Ho replied quietly. Sometimes the right choice is still terrible. The council leaders debated for 10 minutes while the fleet held position. Finally, Vrex made the call. Do it, but know that we'll carry this burden forever. We're choosing to become killers to protect the innocent. May the galaxy forgive us. Tae Yang launched every weapon his ship had. The rest of the fleet joined him. Missiles, bombs, relativistic projectiles, everything they had left. The Devourer homeworld burned under nuclear fire. The planet's crust cracked. Millions of Devourers died in their sleep. It was over in minutes. The threat that had plagued the galaxy for eons was gone, but the victory felt hollow, heavy. Tae Yang stood alone on his bridge afterward. He had saved the galaxy. He had also destroyed a world. He would never be the same person he was before making that choice. The fleet returned to council space as heroes. Celebrations erupted on every world, but the warriors who had fought knew the truth. War had no real winners, only survivors. 5 years passed. The galaxy slowly returned to peace, but it was a different peace than before. The council maintained a military now. Species remembered how to fight. They didn't practice war eagerly, but they remained ready. Humanity took its place as full members of the council, not as conquerors but as partners. The other species had learned from human warfare, but humans also learned from them. They learned that strength came in many forms. That different species had different kinds of courage. Jiwoo commanded a joint task force now. humans and aliens working together. She was young but respected. The war had aged her, but it had also shown her that peace was worth fighting for. Jaemin retired from active duty. He opened a school where he taught students from every species, not just combat but also ethics. Knowing how to fight means knowing when not to fight, he told his students. Bora ran the largest medical center in Council space. She saved lives every day just as she had during the war, but now her patients came from accidents and illnesses, not battles. She preferred it that way. Dayun became a historian. She made sure the galaxy remembered everything. The battles. The sacrifices. The costs. Those who forget history are doomed to repeat it, she wrote. We must remember so we never have to do this again. Admiral Sun Ho finally retired. He had been awake for over 10,000 years in total. He was tired. Before entering his final cryosleep, he recorded one last message for future generations. The celebration across the galaxy lasted exactly 3 days. Then the questions began. The council called an emergency session. Every major species sent representatives. The chamber was packed with delegates who wanted answers. Hyun-sik stood on the central platform once more, but this time the atmosphere was very different. Vrex began the proceeding. Humanity has saved 3 billion lives. For this we are grateful, but we also witnessed weapons and tactics beyond anything we thought possible. We saw warfare conducted with a precision that speaks of long practice. You told us you were peaceful scientists and farmers. That was a lie. Hyun-sik had prepared for this moment. We never said we were helpless. We said we wanted peace. Both things are true. Where did those ships come from? Demanded a Lumen delegate, her crystalline body pulsing with agitation. How many more do you have hidden in the dark? What other secrets are you keeping? And why did you really leave the galaxy 10,000 years ago? Added Thrain. His feathers were ruffled with anger. We've been told stories about humanity's fall. Now we learn those stories were lies. What is the truth? Hyun-sik looked at Daun and nodded. She stepped forward, her datapad glowing with information. We found records in your own archives, Daun began. Ancient files that survived the chaos after the First Devourer War. They tell a different story than the myths. Humanity didn't die in that war, we won, but victory came at a terrible cost. She displayed images on the chamber's screens, ancient battlefields, planets scarred by weapons that could crack worlds, records of human tactics that made even hardened soldiers look away. Humanity became very good at war, Daun continued. Too good. We developed weapons that could destroy solar systems. We created military doctrines that made us nearly unstoppable. We turned warfare into a science, and when the Devourers were finally defeated, we looked at ourselves and were horrified. Hyun-sik took over the explanation. Our ancestors realized something important. They had created a culture of warriors. Every human child learned tactics and strategy. Every adult trained in combat. We were a species built for war, and we were living in a peaceful galaxy. So you left, Vrex said slowly, to protect us from yourselves. Yes, Hyun-sik confirmed. But not everyone left. Some of us volunteered to stay awake, to maintain the old ships, to keep the knowledge alive, to watch the darkness where the Devourers had fled. We knew they would return eventually. We couldn't allow the galaxy to be undefended. You've been watching us for 10,000 years? Asked Thriss. She sounded disturbed by the idea. Watching over you, Hyun-sik corrected gently. We never interfered. We never made contact. We simply stood guard in the emptiness between stars, waiting for a threat that we hoped would never come. The chamber erupted in debate. Some delegates praised humanity's sacrifice. Others felt betrayed by the deception. Still others feared what humanity might do with their military power. A young title delegate spoke up. But if you've been training for war all this time, how can you claim to want peace? Actions speak louder than words. Hyun-sik met the delegate's eyes. We want peace because we know the true cost of war. Every human child is taught about our history. We learn about the weapons we created and the destruction we caused. We're taught that war is sometimes necessary but never glorious. We train to fight not because we love violence but because we love peace enough to defend it. Pretty words, a Draxian general said skeptically. But the fact remains. You have warships. You have weapons. You have the ability to conquer any world in the Council. We could, Hyun-sik admitted. But we won't because conquest is easy. Building trust is hard. We chose the hard path 10,000 years ago, and we're still choosing it today. Before the debate could continue, alarms began blaring again. Every screen in the chamber lit up with emergency warnings. The sensor officer's voice came over the speakers, barely controlled panic evident. Long-range detection, multiple contacts emerging from dark space. Configuration matches Devourer vessels. Count is... The officer paused as if not believing the readings. Count is 417 ships. Heading for Council Core worlds. Estimated arrival time is 6 weeks. Silence fell over the chamber like a heavy blanket. 400 ships. The 3 human vessels had barely survived against 73. This was impossible odds. Vrex looked directly at Hyunsik. Can you stop this fleet? No, Hyunsik said bluntly. 3 ships cannot defeat 400. We'll fight and we'll die, but we cannot win alone. Then the galaxy is doomed, Thrain said quietly. The Council's combined fleet isn't designed for this kind of warfare. We have peacekeeping vessels, patrol craft. We haven't built true warships in centuries. Sunho's voice came through the communication system. The old admiral had been listening to the proceedings. There is another option, he said. Give us your warriors. Every species that can fight. Every ship that can be armed. Give us 6 weeks and we'll teach you what we know. You want to turn the entire galaxy into soldiers? Asked the Lumen delegate. She sounded horrified. I want to give the galaxy a chance to survive, Sunho replied. War is coming whether you want it or not. You can face it unprepared and die, or you can learn from those who have spent 10,000 years studying how to fight and survive. Vrex stood up. He looked old and tired. The weight of his decision showed on his face. If we do this, we're admitting that peace isn't enough. We're saying that sometimes violence is necessary. That goes against everything the Council has stood for. The Council has stood for survival, Hyunsik said, for protecting its citizens, for ensuring that civilization continues. Sometimes that requires difficult choices. The debate lasted for hours. Every species had concerns. The Lumens worried about losing their peaceful culture. The Vrel feared that military training would disrupt their hive unity. The titles questioned whether their aquatic nature would limit their effectiveness. But as the hours passed, reality set in. 400 Devourer ships were coming. The galaxy had 6 weeks to prepare or face extinction. Finally, Vrex called for a vote. It wasn't unanimous, but it was decisive. By authority of the Galactic Council, Vrex announced, we accept humanity's offer. You will train our forces. You will teach us your tactics. And together we will face this threat. He paused and looked at Hyunsik with something like respect. But understand this. We're not becoming humanity. We're learning from you while remaining ourselves. Our species have different strengths, different values. We'll fight this war our own way. That's exactly what we hope for, Hyunsik said. Humanity's way isn't the only way. We'll teach you the principles. You'll adapt them to your nature. That's what makes this alliance strong. In the days that followed, human instructors spread across Council space. Jiwoo took command of a tactical training center, teaching alien commanders about strategy and coordination. Taeyang ran boot camps for ground forces, showing them how to fight as teams. Bo-Ra established medical protocols, teaching alien medics that saving lives was as important as taking them. Admiral Sunho remained on his ship, coordinating the defense. He worked with Council engineers to retrofit civilian vessels into combat craft. He organized supply lines and communication networks. He prepared the galaxy for war. And Lieutenant Jae-min, scarred from the boarding action at Carvus Prime, trained special forces teams. He taught them that courage wasn't the absence of fear. It was doing your duty despite being terrified. Hyunsik watched it all from the Council station. He saw humans and aliens working together, learning from each other. He saw the galaxy transforming, preparing for a battle that would decide the fate of all life in known space. Da-Yun found him standing at a viewport, looking out at the stars. Do you think we're doing the right thing? She asked quietly. I don't know, Hyunsik admitted. We're teaching them to fight. We're spreading our culture of war. That's exactly what we tried to prevent by leaving. But if we don't, they die, Da-Yun said. I know. Hyunsik placed his hand against the cold glass. That's what makes this so hard. There's no good choice. Only the choice we can live with. And when this is over? Da-Yun asked. When the Devourers are defeated? What happens to the galaxy we've helped create? Hyunsik had no answer. He could only hope that the peaceful species would remember their values even after learning warfare. That they wouldn't become what humanity had been. that they would find a better balance. 6 weeks wasn't much time, but it would have to be enough. Because ready or not, the devourers were coming. And this time there would be no running, no hiding, only standing together or falling apart.